Hi everyone, this is Laura and Cassandra from the Museum of London Docklands Learning Team, and we wanted to tell you about how we have regrown our family programme since the pandemic. So today we're going to talk about who we are and our context and where we're at, what the family programme looked like before 2020, what the family audiences thought when we started reintroducing our programming, what it looks like now and what we've learned along the way. And we're also going to talk a little bit about our next steps and what we're going to do there. So this is the Museum of London Docklands. This is where we're based at the moment. And here we cover topics related to the Thames, to trade and migration. And we really try and fit our family programming under the bracket of it happened here, thinking about the East End and what stories we can tell. And there's a huge array of stories we can tell around that. This is our Museum of London site, which is our main site. This site closed to the public in December 2022. And so we're no longer actively programming family content around this site. And this is where we would do our more curriculum related topics of the Great Fire, Romans, prehistory and votes for women. This site has closed because we're moving to a new site called West Smithfield, or it will be the new London Museum in a few years' time. And as some of our team are thinking towards the family programming and schools programming and what that will look like when we reach West Smithfield. So a little bit more about our team and what we do. So we are a team of 8 people and we focus on schools and families across both these sites. Well, now just the Museum of London Docklands. We think about online programming and we think about off-site programming in terms of going into schools and community festivals. We are driven by high KPIs, so we have a lot of families that we need to reach. But in terms of how we reach that, we have total creativity and control, whether we want to link it to temporary exhibitions or whether there's a particular theme for that month that we want to highlight, and we have complete choice over that. As part of our Arts Council England MPO funding, we need to have 2 community family festivals per year, and that generally happens in autumn, so October, November, and in February and January. So we tend to link the January, February one to Lunar New Year, because of the original Chinatown being in Limehouse originally. And so in terms of family audiences, we try and cover a whole range of them, and we think about families with children under the age of 5 and families with children with an autistic spectrum condition as part of that kind of wide-ranging family audiences that we think about. And in July to December last year, we had our last chance to see, I've just seen there's a typo that's meant to say 2022. We had our last chance to visit programme at the Museum of London. And so we really focused on the Museum of London over the past kind of 2022. And we're now starting to think about how we can rebuild the Museum of London Docklands programme. At Docklands, we have our special children's gallery, which is a free gallery called Mudlarks, which is aimed at children under the age of 8 years old. And we also have a family panel that helps us build and create programming. And so at that point, I'm going to hand over to Cassandra to talk about where our family programming was before 2020.
Thanks, Laura. I'm speaking kind of generally about both of our sites at this point because, of course, both of them are open. But we used to run a varied program across weekends and school holidays. So we would regularly have weekend events here at Docklands. It used to be kind of every second Saturday. And at the Museum of London, it was, I think, 2 Saturdays a month. We tried to do quite regular programming. But that would be craft, that could be storytelling, that could be object handling. So it was just kind of slightly kind of less intensive programming, but every weekend. And then, of course, your usual half terms, holidays, summer, Christmas, that sort of thing. We also ran weekly sessions for our under 5s audience. So that included separate sessions for babies or non-walkers, and then more structured sessions for those who were walkers already. And we also had additional storytelling sessions once a week at Docklands. So really quite a lot of programming for that under 5s audience. Our sessions across our different audiences would range from arts and crafts, storytelling, musical sessions, performances, digital sessions, object handling. So really tried to do something to appeal to all different kinds of learners and have it as varied as possible to appeal to as many people as possible. We also did regular on-site festivals. So these usually had a focus. So we might have worked with a partner, say Open City, and doing an architecture themed festival. We might have done a cultural celebration with a community group, so as Laura already mentioned, Lunar New Year. We also have done things for Grandparents' Day, May Day. We've done things for the Lord Mayor Show, so a big weekend festival celebration at the Museum of London, and even paid for events, things like our family raves. And we've done kind of cinema themed events. We did Peter Pan weekend, 2 weekends in a row. So quite a lot of different things and quite a lot of large scale things quite regularly. I want to say probably every other month we'd have a really big large scale event taking place. We also would attend off-site festivals as well. This would take place a lot in the summer. And we'd usually target the 5 boroughs surrounding Docklands, and also coincidentally the closest to the Museum of London as well, but really having a Docklands focus on places like Lewisham, Newham, Greenwich, Hackney, and Tower Hamlets. But we would attend a lot of things at Victoria Park, especially things like A Great Dig Out and All Points East. We even went as far away as Latitude, which I believe is in Suffolk. We have done partnership events. We went to the Open Depot Day for the London Transport Museum, for instance. So quite a lot of festivals, going out there and getting our name out there, making people aware of what we do and hoping that they then come back on site. So what we knew about families before 2020, my picture is blocking this, so I'm just going to shift it, sorry. So families are one of our core audiences, especially at the Museum of London Docklands. I think that the last visitor survey that we did said something like 52% of our visitors come as part of a family group. So obviously a huge percentage of people who are coming, and about half of all those visitors would also use our Mudlarks Children's Gallery. So as Laura already mentioned, it's our interactive children's gallery for under 8s. So so quite a large number of people utilizing that space. Like all visitors, we know that there are different motivations for families coming. So kind of the top ones that came across in some of that survey information is that they want to come and learn together. So at the Museum of London, as Laura also pointed out, that was a huge draw, especially with our galleries like the Great Fire of London is a massive draw for families. And of course, the Prehistory Gallery, the Romans, that sort of thing. So families are looking to learn together and often looking to bolster what they're doing at school. Some families are more focused on just having an enjoyable day out. So a lot of times those families will come specifically for the programming that we did. And also there's that idea about value for money, of course, because we are a free entry venue. We do have spaces for families to bring in a packed lunch. So kind of there is no expectation for families to spend money once they're on site. Of course, that doesn't mean that it's a free day for them. Still, we do acknowledge that, but especially when you take our programming into consideration, when you look at Mudlarks, a lot of families did see us as quite good value for money. A key thing is word of mouth. What really came across, especially at the Museum of London Docklands, as the key way that people found out about us. If people had a good time, they would tell their friends and family, and they would come back with their friends and family, bring larger groups. So that's really key for us, is maintaining that positive relationship with families to continue spreading that word of mouth. At Docklands, we had a higher percentage of local families coming to visit. So again, it's those 5 boroughs that I mentioned earlier, especially people coming from Tower Hamlets. We'd have people come in quite frequently for the Mudlarks Gallery over and over again, because that's free entry as well. So it was really important that we kept those links with those local communities. I think that's it for that slide.
So we wanted to give you a bit of context about what we did during 2020. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our family Facebook live stream. So as soon as schools were closed and we knew that families were home learning, we started to have conversations, and mainly around what can we offer around the Great Fire? Can we do something big? This big thing turned into a live stream across Facebook for families, and we did a little bit of audience research at that point, and we discovered that families wanted it just after lunch, when a more structured activity would really suit their children. and that Facebook was the forum that they wanted it to be based on. So we held 3 shorter live streams across 3 weeks, which were focused on the story of the Great Fire. And that was really popular, and we really hit a moment at that point by offering our Great Fire live stream. The other thing we did, but for under fives, was Rhymes in Time. Cassandra, do you want to pick up on that?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, having these weekly sessions, we really grew a very large early years audience, and we had a really faithful, loyal audience that we didn't want to disconnect with during this time. But of course, having moved to online platforms, that's not really the easiest way to engage with early years, especially because when doing audience research, we found out that really early years audiences weren't keen on digital, at least not on site. So we were kind of thinking about ways that we could still engage with this audience on an online platform. So we came up with our Rhymes in Time, our Rhymes in Time web pages. And it's a combination of things to appeal to the whole family, because we know that the under fives, if they're going to access our website, it's going to be with older family members, whether that's with older siblings, older family members, they're adults. So we wanted to create something that had something for everybody, because we knew that it was going to be these larger groups accessing it. So with the Rhymes in Time, there were 6 songs, 6 classic nursery rhymes, and they all have a London connection. So that's why we chose the songs that we did. So it's things like London's Burning, London Bridges Falling Down, The Muffin Man, Oranges and Lemons, and I can't remember what the other ones are, but they'll come to me. So each one had a video, and we paid for performers and musicians to record themselves singing the song, doing actions, being really engaging as possible to engage with that under fives audience. But then there was some more in-depth information about the song itself. So what does the song mean? Because some of them are kind of hard to understand, like Pop Goes the Weasel, so that was one that we did. So what exactly is going on in that song? What's the history behind the song? And how does it relate to London? How does it relate to our collections? So bringing in objects of images that we have in our collection, information about how it ties into the song, as well as additional activities. So we had activities aimed at under fives that they could do to then continue to grow that learning from the song, as well as ones for over fives. So really trying to create an intergenerational learning resource, so that way we could have families utilizing this whole thing together.
So we wanted to talk a bit about what happened after we came out of after the closures of the museums, and at that point we had a one-way system in place, and we implemented different activities that would complement the one-way system, and one of those was story sleuths. Do you want to pick up on this one?
Yeah, sure. So Story Sleuths, it was part of our offer for October half term as well. So it was linking into Black History Month. And what we did was, this was a time when, even though the galleries were now open, the interactivity was stripped back. So all of our interactives, the touch buttons, touch objects, a lot of the things that families loved had now been removed from the museum. So we were trying to think of ways to bring that interactivity back into the museum in a way that was safe and accessible through COVID guidelines. So we came up with this idea of using QR codes or a digital trail as well. So it worked with families could access these web pages on their own personal devices, whether it's iPads or phones, and they could go through, and there were these web pages with information about different individuals throughout London's history who are from a Black background. So the first stop was in our Roman London gallery, for instance, and we had an actor who recorded a snippet based on one of our Roman London scripts. And so families could go in on their device, they could either access it from a QR code and watch the film, or they could access it through a web page on their iPads or devices. You could go into a different gallery and learn about John Blank, who was a Tudor trumpeter. So he was a trumpeter in the court of King Henry VIII. And then you could click and you could listen to some medieval music, which might be similar to something that he would have played. So this was a way that families could still get those elements that we had removed earlier. There was just a slight problem with it in that we found that it worked well when there was that one-way system in place, but once that was removed as regulations changed, obviously people were kind of accessing things in different ways that we weren't necessarily anticipating. So they might have missed some bits, or they might have kind of stopped clicking through as they were able to guide themselves around, which was fine. And we kind of went with it and took the information that we had and were able to make changes to that as well.
So at this start, we also trialled a arts and crafts activity in May 2021, and we had that as a booking online activity, but it was a free ticket, but you would book before you came. And we found that we had almost 100% drop-off rate in terms of the people weren't actually coming in to do the crafts. As we moved on later, we started asking families what kind of workshops they wanted, and it turned out that they didn't want kind of hands-on activities like arts and crafts. What they wanted was more active workshops, so performances, music and drama. So by the time we got to summer 2021, we started programming performances, and we saw a greater level of visitor engagement with that, and more people come in. So these were very non-interactive in terms of the families could sit and watch the performances, and they didn't really need to participate or join in with other families if they chose not to. And we found that that was really what families were looking for in that summer. The other thing we introduced was our tail trail, which is so popular that it's still up today. Do you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah. So we had originally done, I think, the Where's Wally trail. We participated in that the year before, and that was really, really popular. And it had kind of it was a national thing. So we were kind of given all these Where's Wally figures to stick up, and families absolutely loved it. So we were kind of trying to think of something that we could do, again, within COVID guidelines that would be really super straightforward. And so we came up with the tail trail, which are these little stuffed rats that are now dotted throughout the museum, but they're in period costume, which is hilarious. So like in our Roman gallery, we had a rat in a toga, and in our Tudor gallery, we had one wearing, you know, the slashed brim hat and the big Tudor pantaloons. And so they're all in period costume with accompanying text written in first person. So it's quite different from all of our other text. And it still pulls in the information that's kind of in the text around the rats, but it makes it an accessible way for families. So they're able to hear this first person story from the rat about what life was like at the time. And it always ends on a call to action or a question or something. So it's quite sweet, because we've had families come in with children dressed as cats because they think that it will help them find the rats. And we've had people kind of come in from one site to then come into the next to see if they could find more rats, and kind of asking if more have been added in. So it's really sweet. The only problem is they keep getting stolen. So obviously the rats are a big draw, and people just want to take their own, you know, Victorian rats home, which I can understand. But yeah, we're constantly replacing the rats. But it's almost a good problem to have, because it means that people really do love them.
And we removed it temporarily in October 2021, when we had a different theme for our October half-term family holidays. And our visitor experience team said they had so many questions about where the rats had gone that they asked us to put it back in. So we're really pleased that this self-led activity that came out of families not wanting to participate in activities has been so popular that we've been able to keep it for this extended amount of time. And we're really excited. We're about to add some new rats to Docklands, so new stories. But moving into late 2022, we, as Cassandra spoke about, the QR codes we realised didn't work when there was interactivity in the galleries, and that the one-way system had been removed. But they did work in a different way in terms of one-off engagements in the galleries, where families could participate in something fun that was a bit different. So we had two that we used that were quite popular. So this one, which was Guess the Roman Mystery Object. So there was a QR code at the front of our Roman gallery, and then families could play that game as they go through. And we also had a similar one around the Harry Kane display that we had about Harry Kane's achievements. And we found that visitors were really engaging with that, and families were engaging with it as a one-off, but not as a constant kind of engagement as they went through. As we were closing the Museum of London, we had the theme of sports that coincided with the Harry Kane display. And that theme was given to us as part of this big Last Chance to See programming that we had across most of last year. And we didn't choose it. And what we realised is we had huge numbers of families in the galleries because the Museum of London was closing, but we couldn't convert families into coming to our activities. And they were coming for this curriculum content because they knew it was leaving. So they were coming to look at the Great Fire Gallery and the Roman Gallery. And this is one of the quotes that we pulled from visitor feedback, where we were asking families why they weren't joining in with the sports activities. And it was the content of the museum is superb for its curriculum. A learning activity that matches the curriculum is a win-win. And the sporting theme just didn't really work for families. However, the families that did join in had a great time. We had great feedback for those activities, but it wasn't that draw that was bringing families in. The other thing that we had was we started offering early morning quieter slots to see our Victorian Father Christmas over at Docklands in our Town Gallery. And this had really excellent feedback, and families with children on the autistic spectrum felt that they had really made it a safe and welcoming space for their families, where it was much quieter for them. So we've really moved on from kind of that mid 2021, early 2022, where we were focusing on those self-led activities, and we've been able to think about how we can engage families a bit differently and what more about their likes and dislikes. And where we're at now, so our families numbers are even better than they were before 2020 at the Museum of London Docklands, and we have no barriers to the types of activities that they want to participate in. And we're now able to schedule object handling and paper crafts and arts and crafts alongside storytelling, and arts and crafts are starting to get the same numbers that they did before, and we're not seeing that resistance that we had in May 2021. We've tried pre-booking for our activities, and that just isn't working for our museum. We tend to get about 100% drop off for any free activities that are pre-booked beforehand, and we get much better engagement for activities that are advertised as drop in, and families can come to the museum and jump in and participate. We've been able to increase our programming for our families with under fives. So this has turned into a monthly free play activity. And now we're at the great point where we are able to welcome partners to come in and to support us with that programming. So we've worked with Artburst, and we've worked with Double Bass Dan and Baby Broadway to kind of strengthen that program. So each month we're offering our families something new. And we've had a huge decrease in the number of visits we're getting from families with children with an autistic spectrum condition. This is based on our Morning Explorers programme, which is an early morning weekend programme that we used to offer and was really popular before 2020. And it's just not so popular now. We're really struggling to get the same level of numbers. So we're totally rethinking this offer at the moment. And we're really lucky that the Museum of London Docklands has started a new initiative, which is to have quiet Monday afternoons where we turn the AVs down a bit more. And we're going to start linking into that to see how we can welcome families with children with autistic spectrum conditions in our half terms at a quieter time, but in an afternoon. And we've been able to be more experimental with programming choices. That's largely due to the fact that we're now based on one site rather than working across two. But we've got a bit more budget that we can spend, and we can work with different partners, or we can try things that we haven't really tried before. And we're really excited that we can push the boundaries of our creativity a bit further than we have done previously. All while we've been learning about these different activities and our family choices, we've also been working on our content around London sugar and slavery. So in 2020, the learning team was tasked of really rethinking and refreshing our offer for the London Sugar and Slavery Gallery around what families might need. Beforehand, there was very little family content for that gallery. We have a responsibility to consciously deliver anti-racist programming and consider the well-being and care of our families. So what we've decided to do is activate the space and activate the gallery to really help parents engage their children with the topics in that gallery, but in a very safe and welcoming way. And we did this through having a consultation. So the aim of the consultation was learn how we could support families to understand the connections between London sugar and transatlantic slavery. And it was an in-gallery creative drop-in. So we brought cushions and blankets and storybooks into the gallery and softened up the gallery space a bit. And it was run by an external artist with expertise in the area. So there was a space where the family could participate in arts and crafts, or they could just take a moment, take a sit down and read some of the books that we had available, those storytelling books, to kind of engage with the topics in the gallery. And we were trying to make it a space where families would stop for a moment and have a think and maybe discuss some of the content in that gallery rather than kind of walking straight through it and heading to the next gallery. So based on this consultation and everything we've learned from speaking to parents and children, we're hopefully going to be at the stage soon where we'll be able to offer monthly family-centred activities around our London Sugar and Slavery Gallery. And really that's focused on this reading corner of making it more comfortable for families to take a moment and to have a think about what's in that space, and this idea that we can give permission to families to take a moment to have a think. And then we're going to work with trained artistic practitioners who can confidently speak to our families in this space and help them with any conversations that they need support with. And as part of that, we want to roll out training to our visitor experience hosts as well. So alongside everything else we've been learning about families, this is something that we've really been focusing on too. So what we've learned over the last couple of years is, for us and our museums, families are not keen on pre-booking activities. We have that 100% drop-off rate. So we tend to offer things as drop-in or sign up on the day, but that impacts your planning stages of your programming. We can't rely on timed book tickets. There is still a need for Docklands to have this early years programming and parents needing to feel welcome. And whereas previously we were able to do that weekly, with the team we have now, it's monthly programming, but we're starting to see families repeatedly coming back month on month. They know that the last Wednesday of the month is Tots on the Docks Day, and we can see that the same families are coming back. Using partner appeal has really helped us experiment with programming and reach new audiences, whether that's Art Burst or Baby Broadway or Tea Dance for Little People. We are working with different organisations and companies and really experimenting with what we can offer. We really need to work more with our communications team to make families visible on our website, and particularly the activities during half terms. And we are continually working with our communications team to try and prioritise families' activities at half terms and weekends to make sure that they are as visible as they can be. That's been a real barrier to some of our families. In October half term, we got comments from families saying they were just turning up hoping we were offering activities because they didn't know what we were going to be offering because they couldn't find it on the website. Some of our families are still preferring self-led activities such as trails and are not participating in our bookable sessions. We don't think we're going to be able to convert those families anytime soon. So that's why we're thinking about tail trail and kind of adding more stuff to that. When we did our visitor survey in 2021 and the start of 2022, digital activities were really low. Families were telling us they did not want to do anything digital, but the exception to that is Minecraft. And when we offered Minecraft in summer last year at our Museum of London site, we had huge numbers for the families that were coming. And what was brilliant to see is that parents were playing Minecraft for the first time. Their children had played it lots at home, but when they're at the museum, the parents participate as well, and the children were teaching the parents how to play Minecraft. So there's something around Minecraft and how we might build that into our Museum of London Docklands families programming too, although digital activities have a huge amount of setup and they need a huge amount of knowledge to run, and we're trying to think about how we can do that. And finally, families absolutely love looking for our cuddly rats in the galleries, and they return to do it again and again. So in terms of like what we would recommend, we've really benefited from using partner appeal to increase our engagement numbers. Feedback from our families tell us that they like settling in activities in foyers, things like simple craft or object handling to orientate their children into a new environment, and to start them off by settling them in so they can have a comfort break, or they can try the cloakroom, but their children are welcome to the museum in a way. Even in warm weather in London, we can't entice people into a cold museum with a Lego activity. We put a lot of effort into our huge Lego activity as part of our summer holidays last year, and we just didn't have the numbers we were expecting. And we think it was because it coincided with that heat wave. And then consider digital activities really carefully and what they are adding to that family experience. So we know that now the one-way system has gone and the interactives are put back in place, that digital isn't working, or QR codes aren't really working as a self-led trail or a self-led activity to enhance engagement. But we do know that Minecraft is still popular and that still works. So how we balance that between the two different things. Oh, I should say with Partner Appeal as well. We recently released a Dodger trail based on the CBBC series Dodger, and that's been incredibly popular about engaging new families and coming to the Museum of London Docklands. And finally, what's next for us? We're adding more rats to our tail trail, and this is our stevedore one. We wanted to show you at least one. So we're adding more rats to our tail trail. We're working with both new and old partners to increase and reach new families. We're looking at being more ambitious with our plans. We have big plans for what's happening for our family programming in summer and December 2023. Our community festivals this year, we'll think about our upcoming exhibition, Fashion City, How Jewish Londoners Shaped Global Style, and we'll be working with communities around the content and around the activities that will be part of that. And we're still running those monthly sessions for families to increase engagement with our families with under fives. And we're hoping to make this more regular, and we're hoping to build on that programming. So that's everything from us. So thank you very much for listening to our talk today. And we look forward to seeing you at the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.